Joan is Awful is the 23rd episode of Charlie Brooker's Black Mirror, not including Bandersnatch. It's the first episode to be released in 4 years and primarily stars Annie Murphy from Kevin Can Fuck Himself as the titular Joan. On this podcast, we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It's June 16th. Welcome to today's episode. What would you say is your favorite Black Mirror episode of all time?
Maybe the USS Callister or
Really?
Hey the DJ.
So one of the later episodes.
Yeah, season 4.
Okay. Well, I would also go with maybe Playtest. So that would be season
3.
3? Okay. But the season 1 and 2 episodes were really good as well. The Theory of Whatever, the one with the contacts.
Yes.
Tony Kebbell, is that his name?
Yeah, that you're talking about the season 1 finale, and then also Black Christmas, of course, the special.
There's, the John Hamm special. And then, of course, is it White Bear or what? It's something white.
Yeah, no, I think it is White Bear.
Yeah, that was really good. Million merits, 15 million merits. That was great. A lot of great episodes of Black Mirror, but then later on in the seasons, it felt like it got a little worse to me, personally.
I got that feeling as well.
The last season, I think, was probably their weakest.
I think I only saw the, second episode of the last season, because I heard...
You didn't see Striking Vipers? You didn't see the Miley Cyrus episode?
No, and the Miley Cyrus episode, I think, went viral, but from what I heard, it was apparently more positive than a lot of Black Mirror episodes usually are. And that was the last one to come out before this one, Joan is Awful, right?
It does feel like every season they get a lot more guest stars than they had the previous season.
Yes.
And that goes into this episode a lot. So Joan is Awful, which came out on June 15th. It asks us the question of what life would be like if suddenly everything became public, right? If we turned on Netflix and suddenly our entire life is there presented in a negative fashion for everybody to see. Instead of being called Netflix, it's called Streamberry, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's not just Netflix, though. They're also making fun of Apple as well, as we learn later on in the episode.
Why are they making fun of Apple?
The terms and conditions?
Everything has terms and conditions.
No, but this was definitely a shot at Apple. It was like the big prize door in that sense, where they were also making fun of terms and conditions in that show as well.
Maybe because of the South Park episode that happened 10 years ago.
The human centipede, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's why you're connecting it to Apple. But everything has terms and conditions that you sign off of when you become a subscriber for it. So obviously there's that connection. It also reminded me a little bit of a Bad Internet, which was originally supposed to be a satire of Black Mirror that was presented by College Humor, but there was an episode where they threatened to release everybody's internet history, which again they also did in South Park, but that basically has the same ramifications that this does, where your life just becomes so public and everybody knows what your interests are or your screw-ups or what mistakes you make, right? And the question is, how scared would you be if that happened to you?
Because I think this involved any show that is trying to be as meta as possible. I also had here Bandersnatch, Being John Malkovich, Kevin Can Fuck Himself, Room 104, and Staged. But especially Staged
because
this last season, because of how meta the show just decided to go. In fact, this probably might be the most meta episode of Black Mirror I think ever made.
That's arguable to me. When I go into an episode of Black Mirror, I'm always asking myself at the beginning, is this world real? Is this the present? Can we trust the narrator? Because most of the time there's going to be a big twist at the end which reveals that everything is fake in some manner or way, right? Mm-hmm. And in this episode, it took me a while because the first 20 minutes did play out sort of like a routine drama. But it wasn't until Joan sat down in front of the couch with her boyfriend, they turned on Streamberry, and they started seeing all these shows that they recognized Joan herself, played by Selma Hayek, and you started to get the gist of what the episode was going to be.
That was my favorite part. Did you catch the references and Easter eggs to the shows? I
not only caught them, but I paused it and I went back to even ones that were there for a split second. So you probably, did you do that too?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so let's see if we got them all. Loch Henry, which reminded me a lot of the Essex Serpent, right? Like the Loch Ness Monster and stuff.
Actually, okay, so I only did the ones that were connected to Black Mirror.
I think all of them were, but I just connected that one closer to the Apple show with Tom Hiddleston than I did with any of the Black Mirror one. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Finding Bitman, which was probably my favorite out of all of them because that was the Bandersnatch.
I think it's Finding Rittman because Will Poulter...
Oh, is it Rittman, not Bitman?
Yeah, Will Poulter's name in Bandersnatch was Colin Rittman.
Yeah.
And so that's why they kept the last name. And
if
that was my favorite one, I think.
Yeah, if you've seen the latest Guardians of the Galaxy movie, you would have seen him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks completely different. So if they go back to him, they're going to have to do like some crazy stuff to make him look the same as he did back then. Sea of Tranquility reminded me a lot of USS Callister. Is that the version of the show where she escapes at the end?
I think so, if I remember correctly.
All right. This isn't going to make any sense to people who haven't seen the rest of the show. Juniper Dreaming obviously had to do with San Junipero.
Yeah.
15 Million Merits. You saw the Reality Who
Actually, I didn't
shows.
see that one.
There was like a Hot Shots or something that was on the very side, and I think it was the 15 Million Merit like pop program that was going on.
Yeah, the show that they did.
With the little wheeze, the little me wheeze or whatever they're called.
There was Ashley O, just the Miley Cyrus person, the character.
Okay.
I don't think that they had the title for it, or it was like out of frame, but you definitely saw her face and her character.
There was Callow Years, which had to do with the national anthem, the first episode ever, which was the Prime Minister who fucked the pig. You had Jerome F. Davies. I had to look that one up because I thought originally that had to do with the White Bear thing, but it was really just another Bandersnatch cutaway.
Oh, okay.
And then there was Space Fleet, which I think was the Jesse Plemons, the USS Callister episode again, but his original show that he was so obsessed with, the Star Trek one. And then Average People, I didn't know what that was. Did you know what
Average People was? No, I didn't get that one either.
Okay. Well, that was all the shows I saw. Probably one of my favorite pros of the entire episode was all the Easter eggs you had.
Well, I actually wanted to comment on another Easter egg. Even when Mac is scrolling through Twitter as he's watching the thing, Lacey...
So Mac is Joan's ex-boyfriend who she still has a thing for.
And do you know who played him?
Yeah, because I looked it up and I forgot what his name is. But...
It's Rob Delaney, the narrator of Sexy Beast, but also probably my favorite scene in Deadpool 2, where they're all jumping out of the helicopter and he's the person who doesn't have any powers.
But he's mainly known for one show, like a rom-com that aired a few years ago.
Catastrophe.
Yes, that's his main claim to fame.
When Mac was scrolling through his phone, he saw on Twitter that Lacey posted something, and Lacey is the main character from the episode Nosedive. So that was another Easter egg that they showed.
And then another one was when she first walks into the bar and they're playing that Irma, what's her face song? The any one?
Yeah, the one that keeps on appearing in like every single episode.
That's why it's an Easter egg. Anyways, let's get back to the plot itself because I feel like we're losing people if we don't talk about what happened in the show. So Joan Tate, right?
Yeah.
She's got a Cruella de Vil haircut with like blonde streaks in the front. She has a relationship with this guy named Krish who she really likes but considers him a little vanilla. She likes hip-hop/rap songs like Nicki Minaj. She raps along with one.
Yeah, it was like a Cardi B parody WAP song that she was rapping to when she was going to work.
And then she works as an Orange Squad leader at some corporate company that doesn't give a shit about climate change. And part of her job is doing what Greg does in Succession, which is firing people. Right?
Reminded me a little bit of Up in the Air as well, because like George Clooney, that whole entire movie is about how he fires people, and the person that Joan fires at the beginning of this episode really needed this job, like put a new down payment on an apartment.
It reminded me a little bit of Carl from The Walking Dead when he got killed off and he had bought a house in Georgia and his like parents and him got really mad that they fired him from the show even though in the comics he'd been around forever.
Another connection with that is who Krish was, who he's played in other things.
Who was Krish?
Sadiq, The Walking Dead. So the person that Carl saved and then got bit because of it.
The funny thing is that I recognized more people who were playing Joan in the Netflix show or in the Streamberry show, that the third version of it that we learn, than in the second one. Like I didn't even recognize Annie Murphy at the beginning because I've seen her in so few things. It took me until Michael Cera told me who she was. The other thing that we have to know before that 20-minute mark rolls around is that Joan is thinking about having an affair. She's still hung up on her ex, Mac, who, again, isn't as stable as her current boyfriend, but he provides her energy, and she likes him for that. So they go out and have dinner together, and she kisses him, but then she goes back to her boyfriend.
She also speaks to the therapist, though, right beforehand, about how, she has a lot of, feelings that she just doesn't want to stay with Krish, but she's kind of scared to be isolated and alone, which definitely foreshadows what happens after they watch the TV
she says
episode.
the line of I wish my life was a TV show, right? And then it becomes a TV show. So when she realizes it's a show, that was probably my favorite moment. Not the part you were talking about where you saw the Netflix or the Streamberry productions, but when they actually showed the characters.
I was encasing that moment as well. Yeah, the montage that they showed.
The montage of people like immediately seeing Salma Hayek. It was like, okay, they actually got her. But then Hamush Patel, right? And then that was Ben Barnes.
He doesn't even say anything in the episode.
Yeah, he doesn't. But like Michael Cera later on in the episode does, and he basically works as a plot device to give you the entire story twist, which is that we are not in the actual reality either, that this is a show within a show.
That was after everything went off the rails.
I know, but my favorite part of when people were watching themselves being played by someone else was Eric's response. Sorry, Joan's secretary, Eric, seeing someone play him who was even more flamboyant and then calling him the gayest person. It was just like, okay, spare the criticism. But that guy was famous too. I just didn't know where I'd seen him.
I was wondering, and I checked the guy, The Daily Show, the
guy who played Eric in the third version.
I'm not sure if it was him, but I checked his Wikipedia. He wasn't listed, but it looked so much like him that I thought it might possibly be.
Maybe that's where I've seen him before.
My favorite joke from that was when Kate Blanchett, when it turns out that Joan, Salma Hayek's version, goes back to the TV and sees that Kate Blanchett is playing her.
But we never actually see Kate Blanchett. I don't think that she was actually part of the cast.
Obviously not. It was just her picture. But that they even went that, like, almost Inception-esque with the story, I thought was just perfect for the episode.
So let's just rush through the plot here. So in those next 20 minutes, Joan freaks out. She starts trying to lie her way out of these experiences. She's trying to get ahead of it. She's trying to sue the people at Streamberry, and nothing's working. So she pulls a stunt where she shits in a church. I shit you not. She goes into a church. At first, I thought she was just trying to make herself fat because she's eating so many burgers. I'm like, oh, she's just going to get overweight.
Reminded me of Beef, the Beef pilot episode where Stephen Yeun just starts suddenly eating and choking on beef.
She gets arrested. It's presented on TV with Salma Hayek doing it. The real Salma Hayek goes and gets upset. She finds out
because we learn it's AI. The characters are AI. It's not actually Salma Hayek playing the characters. Somehow.
So it's happening in real time. So that makes sense.
And they're getting the reason they're able to make the content so fast is that they're using her phone to track exactly what she's doing and hearing everything she's saying.
Because the lawyers won't help them, they both break into Streamberry where they find a supercomputer that's making the episodes, and then they destroy the supercomputer just as they find out that they are not actually the reality versions of themselves either, because you have Michael Cera and Annie Murphy, and they're actually actress, and the real person is someone who I've never seen before, and we spend the last 5 minutes of the episode kind of getting to know them, and that's the real Joan, and she just goes about she goes to work at a coffee shop, and then Annie Murphy becomes her best friend, and that's how the episode ends. Sort of a happier ending for a Black Mirror episode.
Way happier ending. It almost just felt like a parody Black Mirror episode as opposed to an actual Black Mirror episode. In fact, that's what Annie Murphy said. She was glad that she got this episode, which took such a humorous approach rather than some really dramatic role. And creator Charlie Brooker even said, not even just with this episode, but just with Black Mirror in general, a lot of his ideas come from a humorous type of perspective. Either when he's talking to friends and they're like, well, how crazy would it be if this were to happen, or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we've gone over all my pros, at least. Do you have any more pros for the show?
Like you were saying, the cameos, and I think that the show worked really well up until the part where she walks into the church. That's when I kind of have a lot of cons.
So you didn't like her shitting in front of the wedding?
Everything up until that point I liked. Afterwards, that's when I was like, no, this is just too crazy, and I did not enjoy that moment.
Okay, so my cons begin a little earlier. They're not exactly in the same construction. It wasn't like one part of the episode where I was like, that's it. It was more to me about Joan's decisions and also Streamberry's decisions. So I think it could have been made way more clear earlier on that only one episode of Joan's life was being released each day. Because at first, I was raging at the TV while watching Joan just watch the episode.
Play the next episode.
And not skip to episode 7.
Yeah.
You know? Finish the whole thing, find out exactly what's going to happen before watch it. Like, who cares about just rewatching your same day if you know what's going to happen in the future?
And that's why I think that, if I could just jump in really fast, Netflix and Apple, this Streamberry thing, because especially Berry being Apple, I think that that's why they did it that way. Because with Netflix, like you're saying, all the episodes, even for Black Mirror, usually are released within that one day, or more episodes coming the next week. But there's multiple episodes that are released. With Apple, it is more of a situation where one episode is released and then you have to wait wait a week before another one.
Well, it was weird because in the description for the Sea of Tranquility, which was one of the shows being shown on Streamberry, it said HBO's show. So, like, I don't even know what was up with that. I guess HBO has disbanded Max and everything is on Streamberry now.
In this universe, yeah.
Yeah. My next problem I had with Joan's response to this whole Streamberry situation is that she seemed rattled, but how fast would it be for someone who is actually in that experience to realize, oh shit, I'm watching this with my boyfriend. What did I do today? I almost cheated on him. This is clearly showing, like, she waited until that scene was almost there before she started freaking out about it. She could have turned it off much earlier. The boyfriend probably would have understood because he's like, oh, of course you don't want us watching. But she waited until it was far too late, and he caught her in the lie. And then she continued to lie, even though she knew that, like, no matter what she said was going to be shown for what it was on the TV. It's also called Joan is Awful.
You can also draw a connection. The first, when she first is watching the episode, she walks back into the house, and literally the episode ends with what we've just seen prior.
Yeah.
However, as the episodes keep on coming out, they're way, I guess, more delayed than the first episode was. Like, for example...
I think they just get released at night every single day. That's how I, by the end, read it. So, like, people would just watch it at, like, 6 p.m. every night or something, and that it would be an update that would go through a full hour.
That makes more sense.
It wasn't moment to moment. But one of the weird things about it being a day-to-day release and also in the front of the newspaper, like, every single day, she didn't seem that impacted by it. Like, yes, she got fired, and yeah, she had a neighbor that was kind of mean to her. Her boyfriend left. She got recognized one time. But, like, there weren't a ton of people outside of her house. There was no one, like, trying to trying to get an interview with her. It just seemed like she was very alone the whole time when this is the first time this has ever happened. A supercomputer is making a show about someone who actually exists, and yet nobody seems that interested in talking to her.
That was one of my cons as well. Just like 60 Minutes or some type of big newspaper company.
She talks about not getting paid. You'd think that, like, interviews would want to pay her.
Would absolutely be trying to get an interview with Joan, and it just didn't seem like that was really happening.
And then also they explain how it's getting what it's getting. So, and they say that the way they're doing it is through data grabbing through, like, your phone and all technology. Well, wouldn't your first move then be to throw away your phone?
Yeah.
Or to throw away the technology in your house so it literally has to make up everything about you? Because that's what it would need to do, fill in the gaps. But she didn't end up going that route either. They go through extreme lengths, multiple scenes where Joan and Selma Hayek are arguing with lawyers to try to figure out a way out of their contracts, the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is if you have a high-profile lawyer like Selma Hayek would have, or if it's a high-profile issue like Joan is in the middle of, you would get a bunch of lawyers snipping at that. There was no way that a lawyer would just be like, well, we can't do anything about it. There's no opportunity to pull this out. Like, it didn't come across realistic. And also the idea that they would just wipe their hands of it saying the terms and conditions cover everything. Terms and condition contracts are legally binding only if they don't go against state and federal laws. And there's no way with what was going on in Joan's life, even in the defamation stuff she was talking about, that this didn't cross some territory into breaking federal or state laws.
To be fair, this is like a different world. So we don't know if things were different there. The problem I had with the terms and conditions was, and we mentioned it before, but the Human Centipede was South Park.
Yes.
It just seemed like,
which was
at
10
that
years
point,
ago.
It was a complete rip-off. And I was like, that's when I was like, this show isn't being as original as I think it's trying to come off as. This has happened so much. And even when they're going to break the big computer, that has been done since the Twilight Zone back in the 1950s.
Well, the computer felt like lazy kind of writing.
Yes.
Like, let's make something responsible.
Did.
Netflix is the villain. Like, you're making fun of your own bosses. I get that. That's funny. You're also making fun of AI and data grabbing and, like, what companies are doing these days.
So I wanted to mention...
people who are anti-climate change, like, or companies that are anti-climate change but pretend to be for it. Like, there was a lot of cool themes that they touched upon, but overall there were so many big plot holes.
Well, it was also very timely. It was just kind of a coincidence that Charlie Brooker, he had this idea about AI, but he wasn't really sure what to do with it. He had this idea about someone kind of being on the front page of a newspaper, but them just being kind of like a person of the day type of thing, where they're kind of just average.
Yeah.
And then he decided to combine them both together. And also he said that the main main reason for that was he watched The Dropout on Hulu or wherever it's available, and he was inspired by Elizabeth Holmes and just kind of how that case felt like it was just yesterday when it came out as big news.
Well, it was just yesterday. She just went to jail.
Well, no, but he was saying that when he was watching it, it was like he said that it felt a lot more recent than it actually was, and that is what gave him the confidence to merge the two ideas and then come out with this episode.
It just doesn't feel like fleshed out enough. My biggest con with this episode was that it plain didn't make sense. The villain needs a purpose to exist, right? Streamberry's purpose, apparently, was to give every subscriber, because Joan was just the start of it, right? They said that they were going to roll out by the end of the week a personal show for every single person that was called Blank is Awful, right?
Yeah.
For what reason? Would that increase their subscriber growth? Would releasing a million shows and dividing everybody's attention into being afraid that their show is going to be watched really help them? Would that not cause subscribers to massively quit all at the same time? Like, who would want to be on that platform? Also, who would want to watch everybody else's show? And so they were saying they were targeting it to the people themselves. But once you've done something all day, would you really want to go watch a show about yourself just doing terrible things for the full day, every single day? I just don't understand how that would make them money.
They did point out that when they first started this project, it was supposed to be like Blank is Awesome. But when they went the positive route, people didn't really want to watch it. They decided to do Is Awful with all these different names because people are just inherently negative. But when it's negative about your life, people aren't going to want to watch it.
I'm more hooked up on just the idea of making content about a specific person and expecting anybody to watch a show about themselves. Like, positive, negative, it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem like a money-making opportunity. First of all, it's pretty clear that everybody in the show doesn't want a show about themselves. Yeah. Everybody's freaked out. And nobody's canceling. I feel like there would just be huge ramifications for this, and they just weren't showing up in the show, and it wasn't playing out realistically. Like, there's a difference between something that's implausible because we haven't gotten there yet with technology. This is not that. This is implausible because it just plain doesn't seem like human activity. Like, this is not how humans act. Humans see something like this, they fear for their lives. That company is getting shut down soon and fast. It's not one of those things where the company would thrive because of it.
Yeah.
The symbolism just didn't connect by the end for me. And it felt like it was a mid-tier episode in the end. Because if you mix in the cool stuff, the funny stuff, it's definitely better than some of the worst episodes that I've seen in Black Mirror. But it's not one of the actual good ones that makes you think, wow, this would be a world that I wouldn't want to live in. This is more just a world that would never exist.
So what would you give the show out of 10?
6 out of 10.
A 6 out of 10, so it still does pass for you.
Yeah, because I like the cameos.
I'm going to push your 6 out of 10 kind of for the same reasons. The actual reviews for this episode have been positive. It has an 8 on IMDb with about 1,000 reviews. Season 6 as a whole has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of see where this episode lines up with all of Season 6, it's in the middle. So that's something that kind of...
Well, I'm definitely going to watch the rest of Season 6, so thanks for telling me that.
Well, Gamer Rant said that Joan is Awful starts off as promising satire of TV, but it ends up getting way too meta to be truly meaningful. And I think that is the biggest review that I kind of agree with it on. Uh-huh. It did give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
It felt like they needed to wrap everything up really quickly, so they were like, let's make the villain just not only Streamberry, but just a specific computer that once you destroy it, everything is fine.
The big computer thing, just it annoyed me to no end.
Nowadays, computers are so spread out, like networks are so spread out. Even if you destroyed one thing, it would definitely still exist somewhere else. So the idea that would stop a plan, but I just don't understand the plan in general. How is this a money-making opportunity for them? Did you stick around? What was your least favorite scene again? The one where she shit?
Yeah, probably the one where she shit.
Did you stick around till the end?
I did. So
honestly, you saw the ending clip of her shitting in real life? Because that's the end.
Oh,
Had
no,
you stuck
I
around
didn't.
until the after credits, you would have seen the real person doing the same thing.
I thought that the show had ended because it came off with the next episode thing. I thought that the after credit scenes where she was just explaining kind of, we see the retread scenes.
That's just a rookie
of
mistake.
The actual Joan, like talking to the therapist and things like that. And that was probably my second.
Where she said, I don't want my life to be a movie anymore or a TV show. It does scare me a little bit because I know Charlie Brooker writes all of these, right? And we just keep on expecting him to like flush out material. It feels like, though, every season that you're going to get some clunkers and then maybe one amazing one. So hopefully there is like one really amazing one in this series.
I think people need to start expecting, though, a lot lighter episodes of Black Mirror, because Charlie Brooker even said after the pandemic he felt like people were owed like a breath of fresh air, and it seems like that is saying that these episodes are going to be a lot happier.
Again,
than
like
they
I
used to
said,
be.
Playtest was my favorite one. That didn't have a great happy ending.
A lot of the early ones didn't.
Yeah, a lot of the early ones were like, what are they called? Mythical tales, or what are they called?
Cautionary tales?
Cautionary tales, sort of, yeah. And so I enjoy those more. It is cool to see some guest stars appear, especially when they're making fun of themselves. Michael Cera getting punched in the face repeatedly. It was cool to see him because I literally hadn't seen him in years. Like, he hasn't been in much lately.
Yeah, and who would think that would be Black Mirror?
And he sort of looked the same. Like, you said that they were making a, what was that guitar movie that he did a few years ago?
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
They're going to redo that one, right?
An animated series, I think.
But like, he could do probably the actual version of it, and people wouldn't tell his difference. Other people of age, but not him as much. All right, well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.